Hi, everybody. I'm just letting people into the meeting right now. Welcome. People are getting acclimated with their audio. Welcome. We're just getting started. My name is Suzanne Grossman. I work at Baruch College at the Marxe School for Public and International Affairs at the Marxe Career Services Office. My colleague Marnie Smith is here as well. And we've been doing this series. This is our third event this week with various employers. We're very happy to have the Peace Corps here today. I also want to give you, let me pull it up, the link to the rest of the series. I'm going to put that in the chat box so you have it. So we're doing more events the rest of this week and into next week as well. The way we're going to do the event is that you can put your questions in the chat box as we go. Our colleague from Peace Corps will answer your questions at the end. So we're going to hold the questions, but feel free to ask them, and you know, we'll catch them a little bit later. I'm gonna, before we introduce DuVale Riley, I'm going to do a quick poll of who is here, and you could answer that when you see it. That would help us. Okay, you should see the poll on your screen, and then I'll share the results in just a moment. Waiting for a few more responses. Anybody else want to respond who hasn't yet? Okay. I'm going to end the poll and then share the results. Marnie, do you see the results?
Not yet.
DuVale, do you see the results?
I don't see them yet.
Okay. It says attendees are now viewing the poll results. Well, okay, so we have 54% are graduate students, 15% are undergraduate students, and a handful of alumni of graduate programs and a handful of alumni of undergraduate programs. Okay. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to DuVale Riley, who is going to share more with you about the Peace Corps.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. Again, my name is DuVale Riley, and I am the Peace Corps recruiter at Baruch. And I am your point of contact if you have any questions about Peace Corps opportunities, if you had interest in some programs and you wanted to learn more. I'm definitely available to help you out and provide some resources and some guidance, as I was a Peace Corps volunteer myself. And so today we're going to talk about just some background of Peace Corps, some of the processes of applying and searching for programs, navigating the website, and just some tips to consider when you are doing your research and applying to programs. So I do have a presentation, and I will be sharing my screen. And as we mentioned, we'll be answering questions at the end. So please feel free to use the chat and stay tuned for the answer. And then again, you'll have my contact information to reach me, you know, after this program is over and for future connections, okay? All right, so with Peace Corps, we have, let's see. We have my information here. As I mentioned, I am the local recruiter for you, for your connection. So this is my email address if you want to take a note of that. I'll also document that in the notes as well as we move along. And as I mentioned, I was a Peace Corps volunteer. I served in Ukraine within the youth development sector. So the goal of the Peace Corps, we have three goals with our mission here. And the first is to help people of interested countries in meeting their need for trained men and women. So that really means building capacity within the sectors that we work in and the communities that we serve. The second and third goal pretty much go hand in hand as far as promoting a better understanding of Americans. So basically building the bridge of cultural understanding and peace and friendship on our part, and also to share what we've learned in our communities with our friends and family and our communities back home. So that mission has been standing since the creation of Peace Corps. And as I mentioned, within my experience of Peace Corps, I was a youth and development volunteer. So we have 6 areas that we focus on within Peace Corps. And these are pretty vague descriptions here, but if we go into our website, which I'll navigate you through as we move along, but each sector has a number of different positions that you can apply to that relate to the sector description. So agriculture, environment, youth development, health, education, and community and economic development. And these programs, at times, they vary greatly depending on the sector you're in. And there was even crossover between sectors too. So you could have one program that deals with health and environment, for instance, or health and education. So you really just want to make sure that you're choosing the program that fits your experience and your interests. And another thing to note within Peace Corps is that although we do have our primary sector, which mine was youth development, there's also a lot of opportunity to start other programs that are not related to the program that you applied to. And those we call them secondary projects. And you really can use secondary projects as like a passion project at times, or just to kind of fill in a need in your community that supplements your primary project. And it can be something that a community is in need of, or it could be a way of engaging the community with a skill that you have or a hobby that you have interest in too. So Peace Corps, we have about 60 different programs within 60 different countries that we operate out of. And the list continues to grow. As you can see here, we serve in the majority part of Africa. That's where most of the programs lie in. And then again, you choose where you want to serve. So it's really up to you as far as where you want to go and what kind of program you want to do. And I do have a survey that I would like to share at this time, showing us just where people are in the application as far as where they might want to serve in as far as sector goes and where in the world you would like to serve. So
yeah, I'm gonna launch the poll right now.
Okay, great, thank you. So just take a few seconds here to choose where you're interested in serving. You can choose where I'm needed to serve, or you could choose the program. And also, again, we also choose for you if you have flexibility for that. So just indicate your flexibility there. And then also let us know when you're ready to apply. So we have people that have already applied, possibly. And just so you know, today is the next application deadline. So by the end of the day, you can still apply for programs that are online right now. The next application deadline is July 1st. Or if you're just waiting to do more research, get some more things under your belt, you can apply within the next 6 months or 12 months. And also, just so you know, there's no expiration date to serve. You can wait until you're retired. So you can choose later in life as well.
So I'm gonna give it maybe 10 more seconds for the poll. We've got 16 responses. which is pretty good.
All right.
And I'm going to end the polling and then share results. Do you see the results, DuVale?
So I don't see them, but feel free to share them out.
So let's see, we had 10 people, 50% or 10 said education. So that was the biggest one. Next highest was youth development. The next highest, community economic development. 6 people said that.
Great.
5 people said place me where I'm needed. Regions, the highest was South America. 8 people said that. 7 said Central America and Mexico. 7 said Eastern Europe. 7 said Asia.
Wow. So split pretty well.
12 said Africa. I mean, I don't know if people can reply to more than, yeah, you can. Can you apply to more than one?
Yes.
3 said the Caribbean, 4 Pacific Islands, and 5 said send me where I'm needed. And then there were 3 people who said they're ready to apply for the next deadline, July 1st.
Okay.
10 people said the next 6 to 12 months, and another 9 said later in life.
Great. Thank you for sharing that, Suzanne.
Sure.
So just so you know, those that have indicated you're ready to apply now, within the next application deadline, definitely reach out to me so we can connect on making sure that your application, is ready to go and be competitive. It really does help in your favor to work with a recruiter. So just definitely reach out. All right, so moving on. All right, so here we are as far as choosing why choose the Peace Corps. So everyone has their own reasons to decide to be a Peace Corps volunteer. And for me, it was a few reasons as far as, growing up in the Midwest, I never really got an opportunity to, my family just wasn't in a place to, travel abroad or really may even had the means to do so. And I had always been interested in seeing the world and seeing something different. So, I didn't get the opportunity in high school or really that many options in college to do so. So when I heard about the Peace Corps, it really just stuck with me as far as taking an opportunity to, step into a new culture and see something different. I also really had an interest in serving and being an opportunity to, serve my country in a different way than like the military. Also just challenge myself too. So taking on a new perspective of learning about myself and learning about some new cultures and building those relationships. And it really wasn't until after college when I graduated that I saw the opportunity to really find time to do it, because it was a big commitment to dedicate about a year of the application process at the time, and also just the entire process of being a volunteer, 27 months. It's definitely a commitment, but it really met those needs that I was looking for as far as traveling and just challenging myself and those unexpected benefits as far as building relationships that you never really considered connecting with, and learning new languages and things like that. So everyone chooses Peace Corps for a new reason. It's also a great opportunity to be part of some global initiatives. And as you can see here, we have a list of some of the initiatives that we are currently working on. And you have an opportunity to be part of that. And also start some new ones as well. So if you want to read more about these projects, you can go to, it's a little off, but you can go to peacecorps.gov /about/global-initiatives /. So there's a lot of information on our website. So if you have any questions about navigating that, just feel free to reach out as well. When applying to the Peace Corps, it takes about 6 to 9 months from beginning to departure. So you really want to make sure you're doing your research and getting your steps in on a timely basis. I would say the first 3 steps can take about a week to complete, with the first 2 being about an hour if you have your resume and your motivation statement ready. You can get this done within a week, number 1 through 3. And then within about, I'd say about 6 weeks to potentially 3 months, you'll be scheduled with your interview. And that will take about 60 to 90 minutes through a virtual video chat session. And then within the time frame of your application know-by date, which I'll share with you in a minute, you'll receive your invitation or notice of selection for your invitation. Now this next few steps, 6 through 7, those can take the longest because they require medical and legal clearance, and it requires for you to complete medical checks and dental checks that you'll have to schedule with your provider. And then you also have to get a background check with fingerprints and Peace Corps issued passport, which can take some time. And understanding that this is a difficult time we're in right now, and knowing that Peace Corps right now is not currently serving in communities right now, we haven't canceled anything, but everything's just been on hold. We understand that there's a lot of time sensitive things that can, take some time to complete at this time. So we have opened up flexibility for completing these tasks, just so you know that. As far as step 7, that will be the onboarding. That'll help you prepare for your departure, help you get your finances in order, and your staging done for departure to the country that you're serving in. And then you'll be going through training too. So there's a lot within these steps, but we've been trying to consolidate it to make it as efficient as possible. Now, with the application, you're going to want to make sure that the resume and the motivation statement and the references are ready to go as you begin your profile on our website. Because the resume will just be a plug-in as a document, making sure that it is tailored. That's another thing that I'm able to work with you on, is just to kind of go over it with you to, make sure that you are acknowledging the sector and the job descriptions, key skills, required skills, and desired skills. And the motivation statement, there'll be a question that asks you to respond with 500 words or less, and asking you to answer the question, how are you prepared to serve in the Peace Corps, and facing the challenges, and then asking why you're interested in serving. Now the references, we're going to ask you to list 2 professional references and 1 personal reference. And all we will need for this is their first name, last name, and email address and phone number. And we'll send them a link through their email to fill out this survey. And the personal reference cannot be a family member. So just make sure that it is, someone that's a family friend or a mentor, someone that has some personal relationship with you. And as far as professional goes, it could be a supervisor, a volunteer coordinator, a coach, someone that has some supervisory over you. All right, and then again, as far as placement goes, you choose where you want to go, and you can also choose your flexibility. Just so you know, those that show flexibility, definitely make sure that you do stick to that if you are that flexible. And it does help with placement. More volunteers get invited if they do show flexibility, because this is a competitive process. And if you don't get your first selection, then you will have to reapply if you don't have that flexibility to another program. Whereas if you apply with a preference and your flexibility, we will have an opportunity to look at multiple options for you when you're going through the process. And then the health history form, that is the form that tells us the limitations you might have as far as any kind of prescriptions or allergies that you might have that might be difficult to support while you're in service, because some countries, they might have restrictions on medication, or they might have an ingredient or some kind of trigger that triggers your allergy or a reaction in some form. So just make sure that you're really honest with that and thorough as far as looking out for your own safety. All right, and I mentioned as far as application, ways to apply, so we'll move on from there. One thing about the resume that I want to acknowledge is that Peace Corps is a government agency, and we count as a federal opportunity. So this is a way for you to kind of gain some insight of how to apply to federal jobs. We do work with a federal resume template, and that's something that I can provide you with as an example, meaning that we typically will see resumes that are 2 to 3 pages, and we want to have them to be, we want the experience to be listed pretty thoroughly. So feel free to acknowledge your volunteer experience, your job related experience, your school related, and any kind of professional, academic or club activities that you're part of. That all counts as leadership and work experience for us. So definitely make sure you add that. And typically we want to see your experience from the last 5 years. And another important part of the Peace Corps resume is that you quantify your experience. And that also goes with the any kind of government resume too. So definitely share like how many hours per week, how many, for instance, if you're a teacher, how many students you work with, what age groups, what subject matter you're working with. That all is really important information for us to consider you for. And this is an example of what that resume resource I have for you to look into. I know there's a lot going on here, but a document form it'll make more sense to be more readable. So here's an example of the beginning part of the application. When you create your profile, you'll be asked these first questions here. So just as to be aware of what to look for. So most of the positions that we have on our website require you to have a 4-year degree or 5 years of experience. So definitely just make sure you're continuing your education or working with within a position that provides you with the experience that you are applying to. So language is a big part of Peace Corps, and most positions do not require you to have language experience. So when I went to Ukraine, they speak Ukrainian and Russian. I had no knowledge of those languages. But during the training, we do learn. So by the end of the 3 months of training, I had a pretty good foundation of language, the Russian language. And I will say it's pretty amazing how well they teach the language, because I studied Spanish for 2 years, and after 3 months of Russian language, I was better at that than my Spanish. So if you have any kind of Spanish skills or any language skills at all, please list that, just so that we have an idea of, like, your competitiveness. And most of the languages that we do require are Romance languages, so Spanish, French, and Portuguese. Those languages are pretty sought out after. So definitely indicate that you have that skill too. And some positions do require that you have at least two semesters worth of experience in that language. We're also going to ask you to list any kind of additional skills that you might have. Whether it be a hobby or you've taken classes on it, just definitely make sure that you look at the question, list any explanation of how you acquired that skill, or definitely put it in your resume as well. And this is also the area where you can indicate your flexibility too. So as I mentioned, you can apply to a specific position, and then you can also indicate your flexibility and how flexible you are in this section here. Now here's the motivation statement response. So it asks you why you want to be a Peace Corps volunteer and how you plan on overcoming the challenges of service. And this is a narrative that you can really create with your own perspective. There's no right or wrong answer. We just want you to answer the question and make sure that there's no spelling or grammar errors. So just definitely have someone look over it with you before you submit that. All right, and here's the references that I mentioned. This is where you will indicate that. And a note to consider is that once you get to this step, it is difficult. One thing that people find is difficult to go back and review, but once you have to go to the end just before you submit to go back into the application to review your responses. So this will give you that opportunity to just continue going forward until you get to the end, and then make any edits before you submit. All right, and just so the some pointers on the health history form: provide your health history so that we can match your medical needs to the countries you're interested in. The health and safety of volunteers is our utmost concern, so we want to make sure that you are getting what you need out of the service experience that you're getting. And once you submit, you'll get an email indicating you're under consideration. I mentioned the Skype interview. It lasts about 60 to 90 minutes, and you'll have correspondence through your placement officer who will be interviewing you and indicating any, giving you some pointers as far as like what you can prepare for. So we'll talk about like times that you have failed, overcoming challenges, your multicultural experiences, living abroad, languages. So here's a few interview tips. This is what you'll receive once you have your invitation. Congratulations, you're invited. And then going on to the medical and clearance information. So I mentioned the onboarding. This is what we do to kind of help you prepare financially and logistically on how to depart and then enter training once you've arrived to your country. Just to give you some pointers as far as the application timing, we have 4 application deadlines a year. January 1st, April 1st, which is today, July 1st, October 1st. And you'll receive, every position that has these dates will also have a know-by date, which is indicating when you know you're invited into the program or not. So if you were to apply today, you would know if you're in the program by June 1st. And your departure timeframe will be within 3 months. So going off today's date, application deadline, you'll know by June 1st, and you'll depart either within October, November, or December of this year. And a few quick tips: apply early. That's always in your favor. Definitely tailor your resume. It's something I can work with you on, and focus on the featured openings. So in our website, we'll show the featured openings are the most needed positions. So those are the ones that we're looking to fill. We're looking for the most need. So that's to keep in mind there. All right, and I want to just indicate some tips on the website. Just to navigate what to look for on the website. So this is the main page. Going under volunteer, you can click on volunteer openings. You can filter by sector, by language requirement, by country. You can even filter by countries that allow couples to serve together. I mentioned the featured positions. Those are usually going to be at the top, and they're going to have an orange flag. These are going to be the high needs positions. So if you're looking to apply wherever you're needed the most, really consider applying to these positions here. Just to take a look at one position, you'll have a full description of the project. You'll see here on the right side, the country, the region, the sector, whether or not there's a language requirement, whether it accepts couples, and how many positions we're looking to fill. You'll also see the apply by date, the know by date, and the departure date. So definitely make sure that when you're applying, you're looking at the departure date. If you're not available by that date, then you don't want to apply to that position, because these are pretty solid dates. There's not a lot of flexibility here. So definitely keep that in mind there. When tailoring your resume, really consider this area here, the required skills. This is the hard skills here. So you'll see they require typically a degree or 5 years of experience. Some might require additional, but that's like the main requirement. The desired skills here, this is what's going to make you competitive. So if you can find any kind of correlation of your experience and your background to fit this, then you have a competitive edge there. And you'll also see here required language skills. If you go further down, you'll look at the potential living conditions you might have, and just some more insight on what it's like to live in that country, the culture. So you'll have a lot of information to work with. I also want to just show you the events that we have. So if you go to menu, events, you can get a list of all the activities that we have in your community. Actually all of our events at this time are going to be online. And you'll see we have right now 34 online events. We have virtual office hours, which you can just check in and ask questions and connect with a recruiter. We have specific type of events, like info sessions on the Peace Corps Ambassador Program, which is something that you can get involved in. Community economic development sector specific sessions. So there's a lot to go into, and we welcome you to join. So at this time, I'm gonna open it up to questions, and let's see what we have.
Yeah, so Val, I can help you a bit with this because I know there's a bunch of going on in the chat. So the first question was, how do folks reach out to you? I know you mentioned your email at the beginning. Can you share that again so that folks can reach out to you?
Yes. So I'll type it in the response in the chat box. Let's see. All right. So that's the best way to reach out to me in my email. We can also set up a phone call if you just share that information with me over email. And ideally, in the future, we can meet in person through events or just one-on-one reviews, and just go over that way too. So
Okay,
email's the best.
Okay, we've got another question. How was your experience in the Ukraine? What did you find challenging and fun?
So Ukraine, when I applied to Peace Corps, I wasn't given an option to choose country, so I actually did not choose to go to Ukraine. But I really wanted to be a Peace Corps volunteer, so I said, I'm going to go. And it wasn't necessarily a country I wanted to go to, but I didn't know anything about Ukraine, and I just came with an open mind, and I ended up really enjoying learning about the culture. And honestly, I didn't have much of an interest in history until I lived in Ukraine, and seeing how, seeing like the relics really from learning about the war and just learning about the former Soviet Union. So I really found just the culture fascinating, and I really loved being able to see something that I never would have really considered, and finding so much value in that and building those relationships with Ukrainians. So it definitely had some challenges. It's a very homogenous country, and being a person of color, you definitely stuck out. So that's also something that we felt was a really great way of engaging and starting a conversation about the cultural exchange, sharing that, America is made up of so many different cultures and perspectives and religions and backgrounds. And it's not just what you see on TV. So it was definitely like an educational component to my service, sharing like my story as well.
Okay, great. And so you mentioned this is, people are applying with a federal resume. It's going to be a federal role. Can international students apply to the Peace Corps?
So you do have to be a U.S. citizen to be a Peace Corps volunteer. And there are several stories of people that were not born in the U.S. that have, gotten their citizenship, and they've applied and served several times even. So it's definitely an opportunity to consider if you do choose to pursue citizenship here.
Okay, great. And graduate student who is asking, is it necessary to submit a transcript? This person won't graduate until May and won't have an official transcript till then. And so they're asking, what solution is there for them? And do you accept unofficial transcripts?
We do accept unofficial transcripts, and we typically don't necessarily ask for transcripts unless the placement officer is looking to get that information, which they will indicate to you. And I would imagine it only being necessary if you're in the education sector, but that's more that comes with the application. So just stay tuned for that.
Okay, and then I had a question to kind of piggyback on top of that. So when we were looking at the requirements for certain roles, can you do this, if you're an undergrad, can you do it like kind of in the middle of your program, or you have to have graduated and then you can apply?
It's recommended that you finish your program, your undergrad first, if you're an undergrad, unless you have that 5-year experience within the sector you're looking at. But if you're trying to do your undergrad while you're in Peace Corps, that might be a little difficult because your primary focus is the project. And then there's going to be limitations as far as, internet or resources to finish your work with your education. So definitely it's best to have no obligations at this time, and have your degree. If you're a graduate student and you're taking a gap, we used to have a program called actually I'm forgetting the name of it, but it allowed you to do your grad school and then Peace Corps and then finish your grad school. Master's International is what it was called, but that's no longer an option. There are some universities that still recognize that and have their own type. So that's a conversation you might want to have with your institute, whether or not you can do Peace Corps while you're in grad school.
Okay, great. Okay, so next question someone has is, just to confirm, you can apply to one position, but still communicate your flexibility and willingness to be considered for other positions. Is that
exactly?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. And another question is, are you able to share the PowerPoint slides with us?
So I won't be sharing the PowerPoint slides because, things can change within our agency. So it's best to just, stay in touch with me and just ask me questions as you have them so that I can give you the most up-to-date responses.
Okay, great. And then I actually had a couple of questions myself, which is, so you kind of touched on the fact that we're in the middle of a pandemic right now. So people who apply for July 1st, they're not going to be going into the field until January 2021. Was that correct?
So there is, so the dates are standing now. So there's a 3-month window within each application deadline. And those stand as of now until we get updates as far as the current situation, how long it might last, and the safety of volunteers in those countries. So as of now, yes, but there may be some postponement.
Okay, and that's completely understandable. I think a lot of organizations are working that out right now. And you mentioned the program is 27 months. Are there programs that have a shorter commitment, or people are going to be applying for 27 months and they need to be aware of that?
So that is our traditional Peace Corps program, is the 2-year, 27-month program. We do have another program called Peace Corps Response. So I didn't mention that, but it is a short-term, high-impact opportunity. And they range from 3 months to 1 year. And it's a similar, it's a similar type of application, but it's going to be on a different, it's going to look different than the one I shared with you just now. But you can find it on our website under the volunteer tab, and you'll see Peace Corps Response, and there will be a list of positions. It's a shorter time frame to apply. So we have programs that just come out whenever they're available. So there's no application period. It's just whenever you see something, just like any postings that you see online for jobs. That's the way it will work for that.
Okay, great. And then one more question, if we can, is, so a lot of our students are interested in public administration, international affairs. Can you talk about kind of some of the advantages of going through this program? And I understand if you're getting this great experience that will help you get federal jobs, I think it also opens you up to having experience that a lot of international organizations are looking for. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so some of the benefits that come with Peace Corps, you do receive non-competitive eligibility, which means you have preferential hire once you complete Peace Corps service for federal positions. It's sort of seen as like a veteran status. So if you were to apply in a federal agency, you'll know that you get a certain amount of points for all these things that you have on your in your experience, and NCE, non-competitive eligibility, counts towards that, and it's just a rapid hiring and a way to get your foot in the door in a federal agency, whether it's Peace Corps or other agencies in the government. You also receive a Coverdell Fellows status, which doesn't expire. It's lifetime. It's something that you can have for life as far as taking advantage of your education into master programs, PhD, even law. So there's a lot of opportunity to get education paid for after service. And also just to consider as far as your experience, I come from a background of working in mass communication, and I have my degree in journalism and photography, which you didn't see a sector for that on the website. And that just shows that we're looking for people with all types of different backgrounds. So if you don't see something that fits your skill set or your education, think about your interests. Think about like what you've put your time into, and find a sector that relates to it. And I'm sure you can find something. For me, youth development was the sector for me because of my experience working with youth. As far as I was an RA, I was a camp counselor, I did volunteer opportunities with youth, and I used the experience I had in education as far as my degrees to engage with youth. So I had a student-run newspaper, I had photography clubs, I worked with nonprofit organizations, stakeholders, and developing workshops and programs. And I also learned new skills as far as like teaching HIV and AIDS and teaching English. So these are things that I didn't really know I had until I, just tried it out. So there's a lot of ways of using your skills to align with the goals of Peace Corps.
Wonderful. Okay. So on that note, I hope everyone will join me in thanking DuVale for being here and sharing all of this information on the Peace Corps with us, for sharing his email address. I hope people will get in touch with him. I'm going to put the link to all of our upcoming events in the chat box again. So thank you everyone for your time, and thank you especially to DuVale, and please stay safe and stay healthy. Okay.
Yeah, thank you everyone.
Bye.
Bye.